Today is October 29th, 2016, and it's around 5 o'clock. I'm Robin Pearson, and I'm interviewing my grandma. You can say your name if you want.
Dorothy Pearson.
Okay. So when and where were you born?
I was born in Fergus Falls, Minnesota on February 4th, 1939.
Okay. What were your parents' names?
Errant and Helen.
Okay. How many siblings did you have growing up?
I have two siblings.
Okay.
One has passed away, but I had two siblings
Okay.
growing up.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Illinois and Iowa. We moved around every couple years for a while. And when I was in third grade, we moved to Iowa, and I was here ever since then.
Okay. How would you describe your childhood?
It was good. We lived on a farm, and it was fun. And it was nice, enjoyable.
Okay. What socioeconomic class would you say that your family belonged to?
Probably middle class.
Okay. What was your earliest memory growing up?
Oh, I remember moving from Jefferson, Iowa to Illinois, and I was about 3 years old, and I went to get my dad a screwdriver from the basement, and there was a spider there, and I got really scared and ran out into the yard and screaming and everything.
Okay. Did you and your brothers and sisters get along?
They were older, 6 and 7 years older, so we got along okay, but sometimes they didn't want me bothering them, but we got along for the most part really good.
Okay. Where did you go to school?
I started school in Illinois, and then we moved to Woodward, Iowa, and I went there from third grade on through graduation.
Okay. What was your favorite subject?
I think it was home ec, because we got to do cooking and sewing and a lot of different homemaking skills.
Okay. Did you have any friends at school growing up, and what were their names?
My best friend was Betty, and then I had Bonnie and Nancy and Bev, and other ones weren't quite as close, but most of our class is close together. We only had 30 in the class, so we were pretty much...
Okay. Who was the most influential person to you as a child?
I believe my mother, because my dad traveled a lot for his work, and so she was the one I was around the most often. So.
Okay. All right. So what were you doing prior to the war starting, or prior to your awareness of the war?
Right before I was going to school and then working, so I was working right prior to the war.
Okay. All right. How did you learn about or receive information about the war? Did that change your perspective?
Mainly on the news broadcasts and the newspapers, and I guess just hearing about what their views were on it was about all we had to go by.
Okay. So where were you prior to the war starting, or prior to your awareness of the war?
Well, I was living in Des Moines, Iowa, and like I said, I was going to school and then working.
Okay. All right, I'll skip that question. Where were you scared that things wouldn't be the same after the war? Why or why not?
I wasn't really scared. I was concerned that maybe if things didn't go well, that things might change here, but I wasn't really too concerned, because there wasn't like today with all the technology and stuff, and it was mainly contained where it was.
Okay. All right. What was your understanding of the U.S. involved in Vietnam?
I heard that it was mainly France that was was involved with the war, and then we went as an ally to them, and then they backed out, and we were still involved there. So that was what I heard was the reason.
Can you tell me about your experiences during the Vietnam War?
Like I said before, we're just mainly working and housekeeping.
Okay.
Just hearing about it it wasn't directly involved with anything, so it just mainly what I heard, and I didn't really do anything special.
Okay. Will you describe the atmosphere of what people were feeling during the Vietnam War?
Specific experience was the when they captured the troops, and then they tortured them and kept them captive for a long time, and that was most vivid in my memory.
Oh, the specific experience one, or the atmosphere?
The specific experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have your views on the war changed over time?
Not too much, but I don't really see what our necessity was there. But I guess being there, and since it didn't have a specific outcome, doesn't make too much sense in the way they treated the troops when they came back. They didn't welcome them home like they do nowadays.
Okay.
So I haven't changed my views. They're just pretty much the same.
Okay. All right. If you could explain the war in one word, what would it be? Can you elaborate why you chose this word?
I would say sad, because of all the lives that were lost, and the tortures, and the prisoner of war camps that were going on.
Okay.
They were sad.
Once the war was over, did life return to normal, or were there some things permanently change?
I think pretty much normal, but I imagine there were some things that were changed because of the people that were coming back, getting used to being back home again, and getting back to their normal lives.
What lessons did you learn that you would want others to remember about this time?
I'd like to have others have sympathy for the veterans of that war, and that they finally built the memorial in Washington, D.C. for them. And I think that they should have treated them better when they came back home.
Do you think anything has changed in the last 20 to 30 years about how the war is perceived? If so, why?
I think a lot of people think it was unnecessary, and I don't know, I haven't got much view about that, but I think a lot of things have changed over in Vietnam, but they still have their problems too. So I think a lot of people think it was unnecessary, and other people think we should have been there.
So after the war, where did you work?
I did bookkeeping at home for a gentleman. I did payroll work at my home.
Okay. Is there anything you wish you would have done differently to support or protest the war?
I heard about at first there were people that protested the war, and they were frowned upon at first, and then more people thought, hey, that's a good idea. So there were a lot of people that protested, and there was one person in Des Moines at the time that was in high school, and he was protesting, and they suspended him for a while because they didn't agree with his views. But then more people started protesting, so it kind of changed from not protesting to protesting.
Do you have any regrets regarding the war?
Just that we had to be there and didn't really accomplish what they wanted to.
Okay. And did the Vietnam War change you at all?
Not really.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Grandma.